Mount Sinai is not in Egypt's so-called Sinai Peninsula, and we have proof. Join Michael Rood to discover the real Mount Sinai. This awe-inspiring DVD provides undeniable proof that the real Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, and that Israel has the title deed to the land, oil fields and all. The real Mount Sinai. Order now, online or by phone, exclusively from A Rood Awakening International.
Jewish tradition says the Almighty's name is too holy for common people to say. Meanwhile, Gentile Christianity replaces his name with common, empty, and even false titles, and both are taking his name in vain. Watch The Name by Michael Rood. You'll understand why it matters what we call the Almighty, and discover an authority in Messiah you never knew you had. Order your copy of The Name exclusively from A Rood Awakening International. Nearly 4,000 years ago, fire and brimstone rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah. But where are these cities today? Some believe they were swallowed into the Dead Sea. But there's new proof of what really happened. Join Michael Rood as he reveals the very walls of these cities still standing. Shocking new proof of God's wrath. Order your copy of Sodom and Gomorrah, exclusively from A Rood Awakening International. Have you been misinterpreting the Bible? Michael Rood reveals the true meaning behind the Apostle Paul's warning about false understanding disguised as religion in Let No Pagan Judge You. This easy-to-understand DVD explains the keys to properly understanding the Bible and the words of our Messiah. Let no pagan judge you. Order your copy today.
Ancient Egypt, land of power, dominance, and mystery. But there is one story that is more mysterious than all others. The parting of the Red Sea. The Bible says it happened, but do you believe it actually happened? What if there were proof that the Bible story of the Red Sea crossing is true? What if we had video evidence of Pharaoh's chariot army sitting on the sea floor? Get ready to believe.
When the woman with the issue of blood reached out for the hem of the Messiah's garment, it was more than just a hem, and her actions were more than a plea for healing. Michael Rood reveals the deeper meaning of this Bible account and how the troubled times in our world today are directly related to the hem of his garment. Order your copy of The Hem of His Garment exclusively from A Rood Awakening International.
The Bible refers to the oracles of God as the key to understanding everything in prophecy, past, present, and future. But what are these oracles, and how should we interpret them? The Road to Emmaus reveals the simple secret to the oracles of God and how to use them to interpret prophecy. Get your copy of The Road to Emmaus and pave your way to biblical understanding. Exclusively from A Rood Awakening International. the Messiah was not born on December 25th, but many false gods were. Break out of spiritual blindness and show others the way with truth and tradition. In just 30 minutes, Michael Rood explains the disturbing truth about Christmas and why believers should have nothing to do with it. Watch Truth and Tradition and discover the prophecy you never knew about the Messiah's birth. Order your copy of Truth and Tradition exclusively from A Rood Awakening International.
This program is made possible through generous donations from viewers like you. To pledge your support, please visit aroodawakening.tv/give. Thank you.
How often do we misjudge others? You meet someone, they seem okay, but you're not ready to dive into a committed friendship just yet. But weeks, months, or even years later, you realize that this person is one of your best friends and that you should never have doubted them. Tonight, we're going to see how even the greatest disciples didn't fully trust Yeshua, Jesus, when they first met him. And we're telling this story tonight because it's the end of the 6th day, after the sun is set. And this is Shabbat Night Live!
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio. 30 seconds.
Thank you. 1 minute's air, Michael.
Ah, thanks, man.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. Tonight we are talking about trust. Trusting Yeshua, Jesus, and trusting each other. In fact, even our teaching tonight is about trust. Tonight is the second episode in a new series called AD, Archaeology Discovered, with Kevin Fisher. Kevin promotes the work of Ron Wyatt. Ron was an amateur archaeologist who passed away in 1999, whose work many people did not trust. And yet, you will see in tonight's episode, his discoveries are all trustworthy and true. Tonight, again, the second episode of 4 coming up later tonight. But first, please welcome my co-host for this evening. She is the Director of Ministry Development for the Rood Awakening International, Annie Reed.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Annie. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you guys doing today?
Good, good. Thank you. You know, we were just talking about trust, and we are honored that people trust us with their prayer requests. We have lots of prayer requests coming into our prayer page, and I believe we have some here that we'd like to share tonight.
That's right. So we encourage you to go to aroodawakening.tv/prayer at any time and pray for one another, but also submit your prayer requests. We're here for you to encourage you in any way that we can. We do start every single workday with prayer as a staff, not only over ourselves and the staff and the work that we're doing, but over you, our partners, over these prayer requests that you submit. So I know that you have a couple, and I have a couple to share as well.
Yes. Okay. You want me to start here?
Sure.
This one is from Zita. Zita says, please pray for unity in my family as there has been strife between my sons. Okay, that's never good. Also, that they might realize the truth and come to Torah. Okay, so we will definitely pray for that, Zita. And from Michael, please pray for our children who have very bad experience with another Messianic organization and have walked away from Torah. How often have we seen that, unfortunately, as well?
Too often.
Indeed. They've walked away from Yehovah, from Torah, from Sabbaths, from everything, it sounds like. Pray that the Ruach HaKodesh, that is the Holy Spirit, would draw them back to Yehovah and that darkness and disbelief would be defeated, definitely. Also pray for complete healing for my children who are encountering some precancerous conditions. Okay, we can do that. Definitely.
Well, I have one from Willa. Please pray for me. I'm an 82-year-old that has been healed from cancer before. I'm bleeding and they have found another tumor within her colon. She's going in for further testing. Please pray that it is not cancer.
Okay.
And then one from John. I don't want handouts, just want gainful employment. Lost my house in a foreclosure sale. Now the problems just keep piling up. I need a break.
Okay, so definite things that we have all encountered in our lives or our families' lives. We can all identify with these. So, Annie, I know you had offered to pray. Would you like to pray for these folks?
I'd love to. Father, we are so grateful for everyone that is watching right now, for everyone that is just tuning in, whether it's today on the Sabbath, Father, or any other day. We just lift up all of these prayer requests, Father. We pray for healing, for financial freedom, Father. We pray for just release from bondage, Father, and we pray for forgiveness and for the healing that others need when you are finding out truth, Father. We have been so deceived, some on purpose and some just without any kind of regard. So, Father, we just pray for the deception that is invoking this world right now, that is invoking our lives, Father, not just from church, but from each other. Learn us to trust, to have faith, to understand, to learn, Father. Give us a willing heart to continue to serve you, continue to seek out the truth in all things. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Well, thank you for praying with us. And if you would like to share your prayer request or a testimony, or you just like to know more of what's going on in the Rood Awakening International, we have a free newsletter we'd like to send you. And I think, Annie, you have a copy of that here?
I do.
There it is.
This beautiful newsletter, typically we always include an activity page. Now this one is revolved around Shavuot, but it's the 10 Commandments, so you can use it at any time. It's an activity for your children to just interact and just be reminded of the 10 Commandments. It actually is from a book that Sarah Rood Smith created, which is Michael's daughter. Mm-hmm. And it's all activities for children around the feast days.
She's a brilliant writer. She writes for kids, she teaches kids, so she really has a way of explaining things well. And it's not just for kids. If you have friends that are just new to this whole idea of obeying the commandments as being a Christian, her books are great because it'll really explain it in a really plain and simple way.
And they're very interactive. So they have crosswords as much as they have word puzzles and activities like these in particular where they're cutouts and just very involved. So there's a good variation of things to do, and of course there's a lot of good lessons in there. So now to get the newsletter, all you have to do is donate to A Rood Awakening, which we're very grateful for. We do send this out to you free of charge. We also email it out to all of our partners at the first of every month. So if you are not on our email list, we encourage you to sign up for our email list. In doing so, we'll send you a couple of free goodies, including 2 teachings on Sodom and Gomorrah and the Red Sea crossing. And these are just incredible teachings where Michael takes you on set or on location to these areas, and you'll get to learn about the archaeological evidence that is found there.
That proves the Bible.
That's right. It's all about evidence, right? And that's what faith is too.
Indeed.
Faith is based on evidence, and without doubt. So. And we will also send you a catalog that just gives you a little bit more information about who we are, what we stand for, and different products that we have available for you. Not just products, but outreaches and programs that you can be involved in.
All right,
so
wonderful.
We'd love to hear from you.
And it's very easy to do. Just go to the website on the bottom of your screen and you'll be set up. And you know, we have a new love gift for this month, speaking of getting things for our partners, and it is Shavuot, the promises received. You talked about Shavuot, and this is Pentecost, of course.
Yes.
And this teaching from Michael is all about Shavuot and the correlation between the giving of the Holy Spirit and when the commandments were originally shouted down on Mount Sinai. In fact, it's the same day. And a third thing that most people don't realize is that this is also the day in history when Israel became a nation.
I did not know that.
Yeah, most people, since they're following the rabbinic calendar, don't realize that. But once you get into the biblical calendar that was followed at the time of Yeshua, Jesus, and his disciples, we'll get into that in just a minute, you realize that that was the same day. So it's all a very significant day, and Michael gets into all of it here in Shavuot, the promise received. That's yours. We're going to give it to you for a donation of $50 to this ministry. And by doing so, you help Shabbat Night Live keep going and Michael's teachings. So you'll get that. And if you'd like to give a little bit more, you'll get a little bit more. We'll give you this these wonderful coasters here with scenes of Jerusalem. They are beautiful. They're nice ceramic, nice and heavy, and beautiful artwork on here. And it's for yours for a donation of $100. You'll get this and the teaching. And for June, we have something extra special. For a donation of $250, you'll get both of those items plus this beautiful book of Psalms. Now, this is all the Psalms of David, or most of the Psalms of David. And they have a wonderful
English on
one side and Hebrew on the other. Go ahead, Annie.
Beautiful illustrations on every single page, extreme detail, and they have little devotional sections on there as well.
Yeah, right there at the bottom of each page.
So it's a great Bible study if you are looking for a new Bible study or something to just read.
And a good topic index too. So you're thinking, okay, well, I want to know about finances or confidence or blessing. It's all in the back here in a topic index. So you can go right to the exact psalm you're looking for some encouragement, and it's a beautiful cover too. So it makes a great coffee table book, and you can talk about your faith with your friends when they come over.
It's a beautiful piece. This is going to be the last month that we offer it as a love gift. We know that we extended it from May due to a lot of demand, and we're very grateful that we had the opportunity to, but this is going to be the last month that we offer this book. And the coasters as well, we try to offer these gifts on this month or each month specifically because we want to edify your faith in a way that you can share it with others. Coasters are a very subtle way to let people know your faith, to let people know what you believe in. And so we encourage you to sign up for these monthly love gifts. They're a true blessing to us. We're a television ministry. Everything that comes into this ministry helps us broadcast the truth into the world. And there are so many souls that are searching for truth right now. With everything that's going on in the news, all you hear is terrorism and fraud and lies and deceit. This is hope. For a lot of individuals. Hope in Yeshua, hope in the Bible. For a lot of people, the Bible never made sense. And Michael Rood, with the chronological Gospels, not just that, but with all of his teachings, he puts it into perspective for you. He takes you day by day with cultural references, historical accuracies to help you understand exactly why Yeshua did what he did.
Indeed.
And so many people ask, well, the God of the Old Testament's not the God of the New Testament. Yes, he is. But why did he do those things? Will blow your mind.
That's right. And you can get more information that will blow your mind through the teaching, and it's easy to get. Just go to monthlylovegift.com and you can get it. Now, if you'd like to give apart from the love gift, you can do that too. We have a new and convenient way for you to do that, and that is texting to give. All you have to do is text TRUTH, the word truth, to the number 50155, and you'll see all of the information there. It's just a very simple step. It takes you step by step. You can't mess it up. It's easy to do.
And what perfect time to give than on Shabbat. This is when people brought their offerings to the temple during biblical times when the temple was around. And so we encourage you to give on Shabbat. The Father deserves our 10% at the very least. I come from a family of philanthropists who believe in tithing more than almost anything else. It doesn't matter if there's food on the table as long as we give. And I've seen a lot of reward coming from it, and we're very blessed to do so. So we encourage you to give at this time on Shabbat or afterwards as well.
Right, and you can also give a recurring gift there too. You can set it up just once and forget it, just so you don't forget, and it just keeps going automatically. So. Okay, now we're talking about trust and getting to know someone. Whenever you see Bible movies, they always portray that Peter was with Yeshua from the beginning. One of the first scenes in any gospel movie is Yeshua calling the fishermen and saying, "I will make you fishers of men." But that's not really how we understand it. Peter does not appear on the scene until a full 18 weeks after Yeshua's mikvah.
Peter wasn't there.
He wasn't there, which we didn't know, which is very interesting, until Yeshua is mikvahed, or baptized in the Jordan, which officially started the clock to his 70-week ministry. Now, other disciples from Peter's village, Bethsaida, had already committed themselves to Yeshua 2 months before Peter even appears on the scene, which is interesting, being as he's sort of the central figure.
That's right.
Now, surely he had heard of Yeshua by this time, but for whatever reason, he was more interested in fishing than this rabbi. So it's interesting. So in fact, it is inherent lack of trust, this inherent lack of trust that we see in Peter in this week's history. This is the very week that Yeshua called Peter to join him. And how do we know that? Well, it's because we're looking into the chronological Gospels, which directly correlates to the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. And here we have it right here.
Oh, before you go further,
yes,
this
indeed.
page. Okay, so our calendar,
let's not forget that.
Every single month, our calendar includes a page of coupons and activities, outreaches that we have. This month, you have 20% off our entire bookstore. So we encourage you to visit roodawakening.tv/store. This is a perfect time to get your copy of the calendar and the chronological Gospels at a discount. So
20% off anything, indeed. So now, we are on the third Shabbat of the month of Sivan. You'll see that on your screen here. This calendar correlates events in Yeshua's life as found in the chronological Gospels Bible. But this week, there is nothing marked on the calendar itself. You'll see sometimes some events marked here. There's nothing on the calendar. However, if you look in the chronological Gospels, you'll see that on this very day, the 21st day of this month, Peter and the other fishermen show that they're not really grasping who Yeshua is just yet. And it's not readily apparent until you read, when you read a regular Bible. So let's read about this. It's event number 59 if you have a chronological Gospels Bible. This is the account of Yeshua leaving Capharnaum, basically Capernaum. And it's recorded in Mark and Luke. But Luke's account gives us a better clue as to what's really going on here. It's Luke 4, verses 42 and 43 in your regular Bible. And it appears here. And it says, When it was day, he departed and went into a deserted place, he being Yeshua. But the people searched until they found him. They held him fast and pleaded that he would not depart from them. Hang on to that for a minute. Don't leave, don't leave. They want him to stick around. But he said to them, I must preach the kingdom of Yehovah in other villages also. This is the reason I was sent. So we see that Yeshua is anxious to move on, but the people, including the fishermen, you got to remember that the fishermen included in this group, are saying, don't leave us. So obviously the fishermen are not willing to go with him. Don't leave us, stay here. They don't want to go with him just yet. They don't trust him just yet. And we know that because of the chronological clue that Michael Rood gives us below the passage in the chronological Gospels Bible. He writes in here, though Yeshua invited the fishermen to accompany him on his teaching itinerary around the Galilee, they went back to their fishing business. Interesting. Yeshua will return in 3 weeks to make another invitation, at which time they accept and move on. So they need to vet this guy for 3 more weeks before they're actually going to agree to go with him. Isn't that interesting?
Faith. It all boils down to faith.
It does, doesn't it? So coming up in just a few minutes, AD, Archaeology Discovered with Kevin Fisher. Kevin is the man who is promoting Ron Wyatt's biblical archaeology discoveries around the world. What you will see tonight will blow your mind. So gather your friends and family, get ready for an amazing ride. And if you like what you see, tell your friends and family to watch the replay of the show at ShabbatNightLive.com. And thank you, by the way, for standing with us, Michael Rood and this ministry, standing by all of us. Your donations keep the show on the air, and one way you can support us is by getting that beautiful love gift we just talked about. So here's some more information on it right now. Take a look.
After the Messiah's ascension, his followers were told to wait for the Comforter, who would empower them with his Spirit. Little did they realize that just 10 days later at Pentecost, they would not only receive that gift, but witness a fire from heaven on the anniversary date that the Almighty delivered his commandments in the same way on Mount Sinai. The rushing wind, the pillar of fire, and the miraculous correlations between the Spirit and the Torah. Michael Rood explains it all in this month's exclusive teaching, Shavuot, the Promise Received.
And this pillar of fire was that awesome pillar of fire that we followed out of Egypt that led us by night and the cloud by day.
For Moses. Get the truth of what really happened in Jerusalem on that day. We'll send you this amazing teaching for a love gift donation of just $50. Or with a donation of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching plus a beautiful set of coasters with scenes of Jerusalem. Invite your friends and family to watch the Shavuot teaching and use these coasters to spark a conversation about the truth of that amazing day. Plus, as a bonus in June, we're continuing our special offer on this spectacular leather-bound Book of Psalms. This hardcover showpiece includes 50 psalms written by King David, plus encouraging devotionals, a topic reference, and sculptured front cover. Get the Psalms of King David, plus the teaching and the coasters as a thank you from Michael Rood when you donate $250 or more in June.
These are the final words of Yeshua, the final closing statements before his ascension, and because we are moving up to this fulfillment of Shavuot in the promise received.
Call now or visit us online to pledge your support and receive these wonderful gifts. Act quickly. This is a limited time offer. Make your love gift donation now.
Welcome to the Q&A segment of Shabbat Night Live. I'm here with Kevin Fisher from the Ark Discovery International, and we're here to discuss Mount Sinai. Now, where is the traditional location located?
It's in the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula. Now, this site is a traditional site. Of course, traditions sometimes can be wrong. In the 4th century, the Roman Emperor Constantine, his self-proclaimed psychic mother, she went down to the southern end of the Sinai and she picked a mountain that she liked. And she said, this is Mount Sinai. And in the 6th century, the Emperor Justinian, he built St. Catherine's Monastery there at the base of the mountain. And so more credibility, you know, there's a big monastery there. Of course, today there's a lot of tour groups that go there. But the problem with that site is there's no real evidence there.
It's amazing that one person has so much power to determine what is truth and what's not.
Tradition gets started, that's right. So if you look at the real site that the late Ron Wyatt found over in Saudi Arabia, now we're told in Galatians 4 that Mount Sinai in Arabia, Mount Sinai in Arabia, that's new, you know what? And also that Moses went to Midian when he escaped after he killed the Egyptian. And and he had the incident with the burning bush in Midian. And God said, bring my people back to this mountain. So Midian is the location for the real Mount Sinai. And Midian, in all ancient maps, is over in Saudi Arabia. Now, Herschel Shanks, editor of the Biblical Archaeology Review, he stated in Newsweek magazine that Jebel el-Lawz in Saudi Arabia is the most likely site for Mount Sinai. The problem is the country is closed off. You cannot get a tourist visa and go over there and take a look. So the area has been basically off limits. There's fences around the mountain. And there's signs put up there saying this is an archaeological area, stay out. But the evidence there is really incredible at the mountain.
Well, you clearly just said that there's signs all around that area that say that it's an archaeological site. So obviously, they know that something's there.
Yes.
Now, do the Muslims in that region, the Arabs, do they believe it's Mount Sinai?
They do. The locals there, they do point to this mountain as the real Mount Sinai. So when Ron Wyatt first went out there in 1984, he actually walked across the border from Jordan. They walked through the desert. And anyway, they made it to this mountain that he suspected was the real place. And the local Bedouins there said, Jebel Musa Henna, or the Mountain of Moses, is here. And so you've got a local tradition. The top of the mountain is burned black from God's presence. It was a fire and a smoke, we were told. And of course, God spoke the 10 Commandments from atop that mountain and wrote them also. So it's a really incredible place. Out in the encampment area are these large boulders stacked up where the golden calf was placed on top of them. And there's a fence around that also, keeping people out, and a sign saying this is an archaeological area. But on the side of these large stones are these Apis bulls, and calves on the side of these rocks, because this is where the golden calf was placed on top of them. So really fascinating. At the base of the mountain are the remains of columns. We're told that there were 12 columns at Mount Sinai, and you can see these round columns of a whiter material there at the base of the mountain. And you can also see remains of a large L-shaped altar at the base of the mountain. So this would have been relatively near the sanctuary. Of course, the sanctuary was off limits from the camp. And also on the mountain further up is a cave of Elijah, where he came down there. It was a 40 days walk, I believe it was, and lodged there in this cave high up on the mountain there. So, and then on the backside, to the west of this mountain, on the other side of the mountain, is this large 50-foot tall boulder on top of a 300-foot tall hill with a split right down the middle. And it's got tons of water erosion around the rock itself and on the base of the rocks around it there, the hill. Just a large amount of water erosion out here in the desert, this huge amount of water erosion.
Now, I've seen that there's even images along some of those walls and caves, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, there are images on the rocks there at Mount Sinai of, again, the bulls and calves and so forth, camels, people, also images of sandals there in the area. But very interesting. And there at the split rock, they've also found a altar which was built by Moses, and Jehovah Nissi, I believe was the name of it. And so also remains of dwellings there, circular rocks, perhaps they were put around the base of the tents, these rocks. So pretty interesting site, but it's also an off-limits site. It's part of a military area, and people that have gone out there, they've been threatened with weapons and so forth. So again, it's hard to get out there. You can't get a tourist visa, and a few people have made it, and it's very interesting.
Well, hopefully you have the opportunity to go soon. I know that you have a few trips planned, but it's amazing. I saw an image that you brought with you that connected the dots from the Red Sea crossing to Mount Sinai and where the supposed sites were. And the distance in itself, it just proves that it's true, that it's real, that, this is where the distance that the Israelites had to travel.
Yes. Right. They did have to travel a long ways to get to the spot. They were traveling as fast as they could, approximately 16 hours a day, and that led them to the Red Sea crossing in the Gulf of Aqaba. And across the water from that is the real Mount Sinai in Midian. So it had to be a distant location. It wasn't just across the Gulf of Suez, right there in the Sinai Peninsula. This was a distant location, and it was a foreign land for Moses when he fled there from Egypt. So it wasn't right next door there in the Sinai Peninsula. It was over in Saudi Arabia, just as the Bible says.
Now, do you believe that Saudi Arabia will give us the opportunity to research this location anytime in the future?
They have been trying to keep it quiet. Some groups have made it out there, and they've confiscated their photos. I believe they're afraid somewhat of Israel trying to take that land, because it would be so important to Israel.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why they've tried to keep it so quiet up to this point.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that information with us. We love learning. We love the opportunity that we have to sit with you and actually learn more about these locations. It's just beautiful when our faith comes together and when we see evidence of the Bible truly happening before us. So, thank you, and hopefully we have you again for another Q&A segment.
Thank you.
Michael Rood's Message of Truth is broadcast all over the world, but none of it happens without the monthly financial support of our Ambassador Club members. And right now, membership has more benefits than ever.
I'm giving into a ministry that is helping to feed other people that have this same hunger that I do.
Join now and Michael Rood will send you the Ambassador Club Welcome Kit, an exclusive messenger bag stocked with teaching DVDs, Red Sea crossing cards, and more. You'll also receive ambassador-only bonus gifts whenever you make a separate donation to receive the monthly love gift. Best of all, you'll get ambassador-only sale prices in our online bookstore several times throughout the year. Plus, exclusive invitations to Ambassador Club functions at Rood Awakening events. All it takes is a modest commitment of $100 per month or an annual gift of $1,200. Call now or visit the Rood Awakening website to join the Ambassador Club. For more than 20 years, Ron Wyatt spent his life and his life savings on researching and finding the real Mount Sinai, Sodom and Gomorrah, Noah's Ark, and the Ark of the Covenant. Discover the amazing truth of Ron Wyatt's discoveries in a special series on Shabbat Night Live, AD, Archaeology Discovered. Special guest Kevin Fisher walks you through every discovery in detail, including his personal verification that the sites Ron Wyatt found are real.
You can see the four major discoveries: the Noah's Ark, Red Sea crossing, Mount Sinai, Sodom and Gomorrah. Those are visible things.
Right now, you can pre-order this fascinating series on DVD and Blu-ray. You'll get all 4 episodes now playing on Shabbat Night Live, plus Revealing God's Treasure, featuring bonus presentations by the late Ron Wyatt. More than 7 total hours of amazing discoveries. Pre-order AD, the Archaeology Discovery Collection, and get 20% off the retail price. Order now, online or by phone. The Chronological Gospels with Michael Rood takes you on an unprecedented journey through the 70 weeks of the Messiah's ministry. Discover the greatest story never told, from the day he was baptized to the day he baptized the disciples with tongues of fire. Learn behind-the-scenes truth of what the Messiah did, when he did it, why it matters, and how knowing the difference can change your life. Get the Chronological Gospels on Blu-ray or DVD now. Order online or by phone.
Traditions that we inherited from Babylon through Constantine have us occasionally with a little plastic cup and a little round wafer in a church service having what is called communion. But Yeshua was not having communion with his disciples. It was the last meal before his crucifixion, which happened at the time the Passover lambs were being sacrificed the following morning. Yeshua took this opportunity to explain something that had been embedded in the Israelite culture for then over 1,000 years. Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine to Abraham, and he blessed the Most High, saying, Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'motzi lechem min ha'aretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And so we break this bread and we do it in remembrance of him. Likewise, Yeshua took the cup and he blessed the Most High with that blessing that Melchizedek blessed the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, the King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. Yeshua said, this represents my shed blood, which will be poured out for the remission of sin. I will not drink another drop of the fruit of the vine. You take my cup and divide it among yourselves, because I won't drink it until I drink it again with you in my Father's kingdom. The marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift this cup and he will say, L'chaim, to life everlasting. And until then, we remember what he's done and remember that marriage supper of the Lamb. Get ready.
And welcome back to Shabbat Night Live. We are continuing with our guests. We have a ton of great things to talk about with Kevin Fisher. Kevin, you are the president of Ark Discovery International. Your website is arkdiscovery.com. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ark things coming up,
Yes.
Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, and we've talked about Sodom and Gomorrah in our last episode. Today, we're going to be talking mainly about, in this section, the Red Sea crossing. Something that's close to Michael's heart. We've got a photo of it behind us, and you have a video you'd like to share with us.
and you're going to tell us what's going on there.
Yes. Before we start the video, we have a map here of the Sinai Peninsula.
Okay.
Where the children of Israel, they left Egypt proper, which will be over in the Cairo area, for instance, and they traveled east across the Sinai, and then they were told to turn south, which that brought them down through the Wadi Watur, through the mountains, and then the Wadi Watur emptied out onto this large beach that we see on the east side of the Sinai Peninsula, and the western edge of the Gulf of Aqaba.
And that is Nueva.
That's Nueva, and that's where we're headed to. That's the Red Sea crossing site. So in our video here, we're going to go down to Nueva from two different directions. We'll first start out here in Cairo, and then from there, we'll head over to Nueva. And then in the second part of the video, we'll be heading down from Eilat, Israel, down to Nueva. So here, we're starting out in Cairo, and we're driving through the city here. You can see it's quite large. You see the minarets and so forth in the background.
So you're literally going to take us to Sinai in your car?
Yes, yes.
All right, this is great.
This is the route. We're going to actually travel almost the route that the children of Israel took, crossing the Sinai and going over to the Red Sea crossing. Here in the background, you can see a large ancient castle there in Cairo. Of course, they have a lot of history compared to the United States.
Yes, hundreds and hundreds of, if not thousands, obviously thousands of years there.
And so there's a mosque that we're driving by. Our taxi's taking us to our hotel at this point. But again, more of this large ancient castle there. And so the next morning from atop our hotel, we're looking down on the streets there in Cairo, and you can see the old world and the new world together. We see this donkey cart next to the traffic zooming by. And
much like what you see in Jerusalem with the old and new city.
Yes, right. So the poor and then the rich, you know, also. So from here, we're going to be taking a look across the city. From this vantage point, you can look across the city here, and atop these type of condos they have there, apartments, a lot of the locals would bring animals on top of the rooftop.
Why do they do that?
Such as chickens and goats.
Okay.
So on top of these apartments, you can look down and see goats and chickens, and you can hear them. Here you are in a city, and you can hear, you know, chickens and goats. And here you can see a goat here on top of the building.
Pasture on the rooftop.
Yes,
okay.
And so, you know, they from trash, a lot of these goats, they feed them trash. So from trash, they end up with milk and meat, you know, if they slaughter the animal.
Lovely.
But yeah, exactly, right. And so from here, we're going to look south, and in the distance, as we zoom in, we can see the pyramids at Giza, the Great Pyramid, and so forth. Right here next to the city, it's quite amazing that you could see the pyramids right next to the city from a distance.
That is quite a sight.
Yeah. So a lot of history here going back. And so we're headed south. We can see the bent pyramid in the distance. We got our taxi taking us down to the step pyramid, and there it is. This is the pyramid that Joseph built, Wyatt thought. In the National Geographic, they mentioned some inscriptions along the Nile River where it mentioned that Imhotep had saved his country from a 7-year famine. So does that sound kind of like Joseph?
That is a little familiar, isn't it?
Yes. So Imhotep built this pyramid. It's considered the first and oldest pyramid in Egypt.
Wow.
He built it for his king Zoser. But at this complex are some underground vertical silos which held grain. You know, during the 7 years of plenty, they had to store the grain someplace. So a great place to store it would be underground, where it's cooler. You know, the grain would last longer. And so at this complex here are a series of underground vertical silos. Now they had to bring the grain up, and so there's one exit point for these silos. And this is the exit point where they would go down and get the first grain out. The first grain that went in came out first. First in, first out. And so they went down these steps and carried the grain up in, you know, bags of grain. So Joseph was able to save his country.
So it's the ancient best before date system.
Yes, exactly. So this made Egypt very rich, the sale of the grain. So in our graphic again here, the map, we're going to go across the Sinai, and we're going to turn south and go through the mountains to the Red Sea crossing site. That's our destination. But Solomon's seaport was on the northern tip of the Gulf of Aqaba at Elat, according to 1 Kings 9:26, and it termed this body of water as Yam Suf, or the Red Sea. That is the body of water we're heading over to, the Gulf of Aqaba. And as we're heading east out of Cairo, we're taking our taxi, and we encounter the Suez Canal that we've all heard of. And along the way here, we have to go underneath the Suez Canal. There's a tunnel going underneath the Suez. It's over a mile in length.
That's one way of going through the waters on dry ground, I suppose.
Yes. So our driver's taking us through the tunnel here, and we've got an abbreviated video segment of it as we enter. And it's a quite nice, but it is a small, 2-lane tunnel. But then we come out the other side after driving over a mile, and we have just left Africa, and we're now in Asia. And we're going to go across the Sinai Peninsula, similar to the route that the children of Israel took. And
albeit not on asphalt.
Yes, right. Along the way, we saw this truck in front of us that said, "I love Jesus." Of course, we're in a Muslim country, but we thought that was interesting.
That's very gutsy in a Muslim country.
Right. And so we went through some checkpoints on the way, going through.
Were you ever questioned about your video along the way by those in the checkpoints?
Well, usually our driver would tell us to put the cameras down.
Probably a wise choice.
Yeah, right. We don't want to be hauled off to jail.
No.
So along the way, you see all the flat terrain. This would enable them to travel more quickly across the Sinai. They want to get out of Dodge as fast as possible. And
3 million people in tow, if not more.
Yes. So again, we're taking video, different segments along the way. Again, you see the flat terrain as we're heading further east. And again, this may be an area where we kind of headed south. And again, you see a really flat area where the children of Israel would have journeyed through here.
They would have never suspected that they would be entangled in the desert, as the word says, encountering a Wadi Watir after seeing this.
Yes, I'm sure a lot of the men that knew the area, when they turned south, they became concerned, where is Moses taking us?
Right.
But
well, as Michael Rood points out in his video, Nueva, in the beach, you're pretty much cornered. You've got wilderness to one direction and armies to the other.
Yes, right. And so in this area, we're getting closer to the Wadi Watur that goes through the mountains. Again, the flat, nice terrain. And here's the beginning of the Wadi Watur. It's a wider area, but you see the mountains on the right and the left. And plenty of room through here. It's a nice, generous, wide area.
You almost wonder if they thought, great, we're going to be hidden in here, and that's going to be a good thing.
Yes.
But was not the case.
They found out later, they came to a stop. So here's the wadi we're going to travel through to get to the large beach there. And this is where it will exit later. This is from Google Earth.
Can you imagine getting millions of people through there? That would have been a feat in itself.
It became tight at some point. But in the distance, we see the mountain we'll head to later in our next segment, Mount Sinai over in Saudi Arabia. But you can see the orientation of the crossing site to the Mount Sinai in this graphic here. So here we are, we're going through the Wadi Watur. We see the mountains. This is a nice wide area that we stopped.
And it's still fairly passable here.
Yes.
Does not look like a threat at all.
Right. But as it gets narrow, we can see here it's much narrower. And things were a bit congested.
And there is nothing there. I mean, no wonder they were concerned. There's no food, there's no water.
Yes.
Just a bunch of rock. And
right.
so...
And you can't take your wagons over top of these mountains here.
No.
Look how steep this is.
We have to remember, there's no asphalt in that day. I mean, there's no smooth road. They're feeling every bump. They're
yes.
likely twisting ankles trying to get away so fast.
Exactly. And so, winding our way through this narrow area, It gets more and more narrow. Here we make a turn through a narrow spot. And I think we may pan up at some point, and you can see how steep these large mountains are. So it says in Exodus 14, they're entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in. So Exodus is telling us they're going through the Wadi Watur, they feel all shut in, they're entangled. They're winding their way through these narrow mountains. And
yeah, for those who argue a different crossing point, that verse would not make sense.
Right.
Where are they going to be literally entangled?
Yes, and you can see how steep it is. Very steep there. We shot up there. And again, very narrow. You're not going to go over top of these mountains. But Josephus said, for there was on each side a ridge of mountains that terminated at the sea, which were impassable by reason of their roughness and obstructed their flight. So again, he is agreeing with what the Bible is saying about the mountains.
And even with more detail that would further prove.
That is terminating at the sea. And here we're getting closer to the exit point, closer to the beach where they'll come to a stop. In the distance are the end of the mountains. And this is the end of the Wadi Watur. You can see here where it's washed out recently.
Now, had you wondered as you were approaching this, where did that fire come down and separate the Egyptians from the Israelites?
We will see evidence of it.
Really?
Yes. We will show that to you. So here we're getting closer to the exit point of the Wadi. In the distance is the beach, and past that we can see in the distance now the water of the Gulf of Aqaba.
Now there's something on that beach modern, is there not? There's some kind of, there's some buildings there.
There is, and we'll see that, yes. So there's the Wadi we traveled through. We're now at the beach at Nueva. And now we're going to show you the second way to get to the beach, and this would be from Israel. Here's Eilat. It's Saturday evening. The day is ending, and the next morning we're going to head out through the Israeli exit point and then go over into the Egyptian border station here. And so the Taba Gateway, and we had our driver waiting for us, ready to take us. We're heading south about 50 miles, heading down to Nueva. And
this is the Israeli way.
This is from Israel, yes.
Okay.
You can get to it from Israel. And on the left, we can see the waters of the Gulf of Aqaba. So I'm here in the back seat. We see the water.
Oh, there it is there, yeah.
On the left, the Gulf of Aqaba. That is the Yam Suf, or Red Sea, spoken of in the Bible. There is the Pharaoh's Island, built in the 11th century by the Crusaders. I guess they were controlling movement through the area. It's a very interesting castle. And here in Egypt, things are poorer compared to Israel, but a lot of vacant buildings, a lot of unemployed. But we're continuing to head south.
Now, when was this video shot?
This was November of 2016.
Okay, so this is after all the unrest and the Arab Spring.
Yes.
And all the rest of it.
Yes. And then there's Nueva, jutting out into the water, 5 miles long, 3 miles across. So it's large enough to hold 3 million people.
That is larger than one imagines seeing the photos from the aerial view.
In the background there is the Wadi Watur we came out of, emptied out onto the beach here. This is from our hotel. And you can see the Wadi Watur right there.
So this is what, minus the buildings, of course, this is what the Israelites saw.
Yes.
When they look back and saw the Egyptians coming.
Some have called this Piharoth, mouth of the hole or canyon, which is, it's a major point to make note of because you're exiting the mountains. So that may be Piharoth. And then here is sunrise the next morning. You can see the beautiful mountains over there in Saudi Arabia and the sun coming up over the mountains. So very interesting. It's nice to be right there at the Red Sea crossing. And here we're panning across. You can see the mountains of Saudi Arabia.
So that's where they are going, but they have no idea how they're going to get across. Can you imagine being on that beach, looking at that, saying, Moses, what have you done? No wonder they thought that we're dead.
Right. But of course, Moses had full faith in God, that God would do something. He didn't know exactly what. But so here we are, taking a look, heading, that's a viewing to the north. Our guide wanted us to come to his house for breakfast. He had his goats out front.
Oh.
Trusty old goats that eat the trash. And so our driver here on the left, we're here at Nueva.
So can people go out there like you did as on some kind of tour, or is this just something, an anomaly that you did and happened to find a driver who was willing to do it?
Well, I don't know of any tours going there, formal tours, but it's mainly individuals that are going. We had to go through like 6 checkpoints to get to this spot.
So you've got to be dedicated. You've got to have a reason for going out there.
Yes, and there's so much military there on the way to the Nueva, it can turn off a lot of visitors, tourists, I think. And that's what one of the hotel owners said. So here, our guide was giving us some tea, and then we headed out from here. We were going to head over to the pillar that marks the spot there at Nueva. And you can see the poor area of town, the Bedouins living.
Now this is the pillar that has been eroded over time, not the ones that the Saudis found on the other side, which was pretty much intact.
Right, this will be the Egyptian pillar we're heading toward. And it was found lying in the water. Here we can see it in the distance next to the road in the center of the video.
Oh, there it is erected there, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ron Wyatt showed it to the authorities in 1978. The Israelis were occupying the Sinai Peninsula. He showed it to them. They brought it back from the water's edge and set it up in concrete, which was very nice. So today you can go there and stand beside this pillar.
And that's all thanks to Ron Wyatt.
Yeah,
essentially.
And Solomon, who erected it to start with.
Of course, yeah.
So, the matching column on the Saudi Arabian side had Hebrew writing on it still when Ron found it in 1984 that said Solomon, Pharaoh, Yahweh, death, Mizraim, which means Egypt, water, Edom. So this was a marker marking the Red Sea crossing spot.
And someone has made their own markings on it,
yes,
apparently.
Unfortunately, but modern graffiti. But Solomon's seaport, Elath, was 50 miles to the north there at modern-day Eilat. And so Solomon, this was his area. This was his neighborhood. And so 400 years after the fact, he had these columns erected to mark the spot of the Red Sea crossing. He knew full well where this event took place.
So that must have been passed down from family to family.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
So it's a 16-foot red granite Phoenician-style column. Beautiful.
And there's obviously no writing on there. That's all been washed off now.
The back side of it has been eroded away. It doesn't look this nice, and that's where probably some writing was.
But that's a solid piece of granite. That's not like the Sodom and Gomorrah limestone that we saw. This is this
is very solid red granite. It's very beautiful. So from here, we can get a look at where this is in relation to the water. It's set back. The water's a couple hundred yards away.
And this is the beach here, essentially.
Yeah, this is the crossing area right here where the water actually opened up.
Wow.
Yes. It's amazing to stand here.
Now, is there a definite place on the other side that we can match up as to where from the beach?
The column that was cut down in Saudi Arabia, the base of it is still there.
Oh, okay.
So if you line these up, it's 13 miles across the water. Yes. So we're traveling through the local Bedouin village here. But up to the north, before we head down to the crossing site, up to the north is Migdal, or fortress, that is at the narrowest point where the water and mountains come together, is this fortress. I imagine it was designed to limit the travelers going up and down through the beach there, heading north or south. And so this was some type of Egyptian fortress designed to control movement through the area. And inside the fort here, they had a nice well dug that would serve the soldiers here in the nice fort. And so some of the locals were following us in here, and they were showing us this well that the soldiers would have used.
And some kids sitting precariously on the edge.
Yeah, I'm afraid they might fall in there. And so we can look down and we can see a little bit of the water. And so that would have served them. So this was probably Migdal. And now we're getting ready to head back south to the actual crossing site. And here you can see the beach where the waters opened up. We're standing at the exact spot.
Wow.
Yes, and the mountains of Saudi Arabia in the distance.
Did your knees get weak sitting there? Was it an awesome thing to behold?
It was quite incredible, yes, to be there. And so in the foreground, right in front of us here, is a melted beach where the sand and the stones were literally melted together like concrete.
Really?
This is not loose sand. This is a melted beach which the pillar of fire created when it stood here. So
separating the Egyptian army from the fleeing Israelites.
Yeah. So again, this is more evidence, that confirms the location here.
My goodness. Now, how did you find out about that?
I had heard about it, and then I saw it myself, So here it is. You see this rock is just infused in with the sand and the little rocks there. And this is all hardened. This is like concrete.
That is amazing.
Jason here is stepping on it. It's very solid. This is a different area.
How did the locals explain this?
I asked the hotel owner was here with us that we know, and he says, I've never seen this before. His hotel's in a different area, but he was amazed at what he saw. So
well, there's the evidence right there. It's solid.
Right. And so a piece of it was broken off for us to look at, and you can see up close here all the little rocks and the sand. They're melted together, infused by the pillar of fire. And this goes on for some ways. This isn't just one little spot. And so Ron Wyatt went scuba diving out there, and various things have been found in the water. You can see human femur bone that is coral encrusted, which would be something you would expect. And on the left here, we see a normal one. On the right, you see the coral encrusted femur from one of the soldiers. On the top left, you see a human rib cage stuck in the coral.
Now, what about people who say, "Oh, this is table coral"?
It's not, because it has metal in it. And so here's a horse's hoof. It's shriveled up when they took it out of the water. It's shriveled up. So again, we have horse parts, human parts.
What are we seeing here? What is this coral?
And so this is coral standing on an axle, and it has a raised center hub with spokes going outwards. Here's another round chariot with a raised center hub and then spokes going out, and it's got a round shape to it. Again, it's covered in coral.
Do some people say that these are just modern shipwrecks?
Some people have said that, but again, this agrees totally with the design of the chariot wheels. With the raised center hub and using metal detectors, there is metal in the center. There are spokes going out. This is a 4-spoke wheel with 3 spokes left. 4-spoke wheels, 6-spoke wheels, and 8-spoke wheels are found here. Of course, using the metal detector, like he's demonstrating here, all of the hubs here contain metal, and that is the design of the Egyptian chariot wheel with the metal center hub. Now here is a gold-plated wheel. There were 600 choice chariots used in the Exodus, we're told, so you would expect to find 1,200 chariot wheels here with gold. And this one is special. It's gold-plated, and 2 or 3 of these were found by Mr. Wyatt. Now we see a more shallow area where the Red Sea crossing took place. It's shallower here compared to the north and compared to the south. It's still deep. It has to be a deep area. It's 2,800 feet deep, but that gives you a 4% grade, which is manageable. Over in Saudi Arabia, you see the remains of the pillar that was found there on the Saudi Arabian side. It was cut down by the Saudi authorities. It had Hebrew writing on it. We don't know where it is. But there in the Saudi waters, Viveka Ponton went scuba diving, and she found this beautiful chariot wheel in the Saudi Arabian waters. So you have chariot parts on the Egyptian side, chariot parts on the Saudi Arabian side. So,
but it's not the crossing site. It couldn't be.
That's what the critics would say. But the evidence is here. It's real. So we rented a boat and went out with a Rove, a remote operated vehicle. It had a 100-foot tether, and so we were going to do some little inspecting ourselves.
This is a submarine camera?
Yes, for a few hours. And we didn't have days and weeks to do this. We had a few hours. We rented a nice boat here to take off. We headed down toward the south end of the beach. We're headed toward that area, and you can see the waters extending over to Saudi Arabia in the distance. And
so were you stopped by the Saudi authorities like Leonard Muller was?
Sometimes they do, yeah. If they suspect you, they'll come over and see what you're up to. But so now we're in the approximate area, and we're gonna throw the drone into the water.
So you closest to which land is that?
We're close to Egypt.
Close
here,
to Egypt.
Saudi,
right.
Sinai Peninsula. So we're getting it ready for another launching here. So here's the camera. It's got 3 propellers, and it's giving us a live feed back up into the boat. And so that day we were able to see something. I looked around, but we couldn't confirm that it was a chariot wheel. So here we're launching it. And then here's an instant replay on board the Rove. The Rove's videoing this, and so we're down in the water.
So where you are is not that deep where you are right here.
Right,
close to the
it's
land.
not that deep, yes. And so you can see some coral parts here.
But again, coral doesn't grow on sand. There
That's
has
true.
to be
It has
something for it to grow on.
something, yes.
So obviously there has to be something down there.
Yes.
But this area is very remote. I wouldn't imagine that it's, pieces from from modern humans, because why would they be there? There's nothing there.
Yes. So some of these objects here may be from the, the Pharaoh's armory. We can't tell for sure.
This is fascinating. So we have the video from the Red Sea crossing. Thank you for showing us your trip down there. After the break, we are going to come back and talk about Mount Sinai, what's on the other side of the Red Sea crossing, so we look forward to that. And right now, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please support this program. Stand with us and bringing the truth to the world, not the fairy tales, not all the false doctrines. We're here to bring you the truth, and so we need your help in doing that. There are no corporate sponsors. You are the sponsor that makes it happen. So we're going to give you a couple of minutes. There will be some information on the screen there for you to donate to this ministry, and we really encourage you to do so, and we thank you in advance for that. In a couple of minutes, we'll come back and talk about Mount Sinai. And welcome back. If you decided to support our ministry, thank you very much for doing so. You can donate anytime by going to roodawakening.tv or 888-766-3610. Again, thank you very much. Now, we're with Kevin Fisher from Ark Discovery International, and we meant to get into something before the break, and that was Kadesh Barnea. We're going to talk a little bit about that and then get into Mount Sinai. But tell us about Kadesh Barnea.
This is the second location where Moses struck the rock.
Okay, hold on. Wait a minute.
Yes.
Second
right.
location.
Yes.
What's that about?
Well, the first location was in Mount Sinai.
Okay.
He was told to strike the rock, which he did. It split, and the water came out. Well, they moved over to the Kadesh Barnea area, and he was told to speak to the rock. But instead, out of basically anger, he struck the rock, and the water came out. And so there's an area about 30 miles southwest of the Dead Sea that Mr. White found that he believes is the Kadesh Barnea site, where you can see a large amount of water erosion coming down the base of the mountain right there. So to get to the site, you have to drive out in the desert there, drive down some rocky roads. And in this first image here, we're getting out of our rental vehicle, or Avis. I'm sorry, Avis. But going down these little rough roads, and we finally got to a stop. We couldn't go any further. And so you walk about 2 miles through the desert to get to this mountainous area.
Okay.
In the distance is the area we'll be taking a look at, but you can see it's rather flat out here. This would have been kind of the area where the children of Israel would have camped. Plenty of level area here. And then this is a site where the water erosion is. You can see someone standing here. To the right of this individual is the site we'll be taking a look at where there's the most water erosion. But this is the site where Moses struck the rock. Now, in the next slide here, we can see a large amount of erosion coming down the mountain. It's eroded away.
Okay.
This rock, I mean, these are large cutouts in the rock caused by a lot of water. This isn't a trickle of water, but a real gully washer coming down here constantly, eroding away the rock into channels. There's actually large channels here as deep as 6 feet going down. And in the distance here in the left, where the individuals next to the stone, that is a baffle rock stone, they call it, where it was approximately 6 feet deep there, the channel that was being cut out, and the children of Israel stuck this rock down in the channel to force the water out, to spread out the water, basically.
Okay. Like a dam, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here you can see the eroded areas.
Still
these
some pools there?
Yeah, these are deep. Apparently there had been a light recent rain here in this particular case when we were there. And again, you can see more of the eroded areas of the rock, more evidence of a large amount of water creating these deep channels coming down. And here we're looking down the side of the rock here, more of the deep channels.
So is this recognized by anyone as being this site?
It's not officially recognized. Again, this is one of the discoveries that's not recognized by the majority. And the next slide here, we see the deep channel, about 6 feet deep, where the baffle rock was placed in here, strategically placed. It's a wedge-shaped rock, forced straight down in there. And then here's the back side of it. You can see again.
Oh, that is a massive stone when you see it from that angle.
It's very large, and it's wedged vertically in there, like it was placed by the human hand in some way or another.
Yeah.
So, and just above this, we'll take a look to the right of this, but again, you can see the baffle rock, and then where the water would have run downhill out into the encampment to give refreshing water to the children of Israel.
Now, have there been any artifacts found out there, like some pottery and things?
Well, Ron White did find some pottery, grinding millstone out there. So artifacts have been found in the encampment area.
So regardless of what you want to believe, people did live there at some point.
Yes, there's evidence, yes. And using Ron's subsurface interface radar and gold detecting equipment, he did find an area where he was getting a reading for gold, where some of the people could have been buried in that encampment area.
Oh, so this so they wore their gold, and so this is a cemetery. After they were buried, they wore their gold to their death.
So some were buried with their gold. So again, this is a distant view. We can see way out in the valley there, and just above this site, above where the baffle rock is, we can see an area in this spot. This is probably 40 feet from the baffle rock, And this area here, this appears to have been the area of the source of the water that was coming out. And here you can see the exact hole. It appears that water was shooting out of this hole and running downhill. And you can see the water here, the rocks here have been worn smooth. But so that's the Kadesh Barnea that Ron Wyatt believes is the real site of the event where Moses sinned.
The second striking of the rock.
The second, yes.
A different location.
Yes.
Interesting. All right. All right, well, we're going to get into Mount Sinai now. We have another interesting presentation here, Kevin, so tell us about Mount Sinai.
So this is a photo taken in Saudi Arabia looking back across over to Egypt. This would be a sunset photo. You can see the nice palm trees here in the foreground. But some people are probably asking, why are you over in Saudi Arabia? The reason we're in Saudi Arabia, as we can see on the map here, is because the Red Sea crossing that we saw earlier is found at the Nuweiba Beach in the Sinai Peninsula, and it's in the Gulf of Aqaba. And Midian is where Mount Sinai should be. Midian is in Saudi Arabia, near the mountain here, Mount Sinai. All maps that are historically accurate will show Midian over here in this area of Saudi Arabia. Midian is where Moses fled to escape the punishment of killing the Egyptian. And 40 years later, he was at the mountain of God. And
because you will worship me on this mountain.
Yes, he was to bring the children of Israel back to this mountain, the fire incident with the burning bush. So he was in Midian at that point, and he was to bring the people back to that location. So we want to be looking in Saudi Arabia. So,
you know what I find interesting too is even though Ron Wyatt and Michael Rood and others say it's here, they're not the only ones. You have on your website some other quotes from some very knowledgeable and notable people.
Yes.
For example, Dr. Roy Knutson, he's a professor of biblical archaeology, says the visible evidence is quite overwhelming that the location of the true Mount Sinai has been discovered in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Herschel Shanks, you mentioned Herschel Shanks to me when we were talking before the program. He says Jabal al-Laz is most likely the site for Mount Sinai. And then Dr. Dean McKenzie, who is a professor emeritus at the University of Oregon, says the evidence points to northwest Saudi Arabia as the location of the actual Mount Sinai.
Yeah, so there are, quote, authorities out there that are agreeing, yes, this is the correct mountain. And this is the place where Ron, he crossed the border in 1984 on foot from Jordan into Saudi Arabia, he and his sons, and they walked through the desert. It was a very strenuous hike for them, and that's when he was taken prisoner, supposedly, being accused of being an Israeli spy. But Ron Wyatt found this mountain there, and he asked the locals, and the locals said, Jebel Musa Hena, or the Mountain of Moses is here. And so you've got a local tradition out there that, yes, this is the Mountain of Moses, and of course they do respect Moses, the Muslims do.
Now there's two names there, Jabal al-Laz and Jebel Musa?
Yeah, Jebel Musa Hena. They call it the Mountain of Moses.
Okay.
Yeah, is what they call it.
And we're talking about the same place?
Yes, same place. Same as Jebel al-Laz, yes. And so here is the beach on the Saudi Arabian side of the crossing site there.
Where the Israelites came over,
yes,
from Nuweiba.
And that's where we saw in the previous segment where the chariot wheel was found.
Ah, okay.
In these waters here, so this is a continuation of the crossing site. And so from the beach area, you can also see where the column was cut down. The column that had the writing on it, death, Mizraim, Pharaoh, Yahweh, Solomon, water. So this was a column marking the spot for the Red Sea crossing. The authorities cut it down and took it someplace. We don't know where it is.
And what's interesting, there's two columns, and people might say, oh, well, that's just each culture had their own traditions of raising columns for this and that. But these are matching columns. They're the same granite.
Yes, they're from opposite sides of the crossing site, strategically placed, and then you have the chariot parts in these same waters. So they were placed there on purpose, for a reason, pillars were used, in ancient times to mark places or events. And so, we can trust these columns in this particular case. Solomon's seaport was just to the north. He knew of this area, what was going on here. So in our next slide here, we can see Tim Mahoney in the foreground, and in the background, you can see the split rock, the first split rock.
Yes, okay.
So we went from the second one back to the first one here. And of course, Tim Mahoney, he is with the website patternsofevidence.com. They're putting together a documentary on this and the Red Sea crossing. But you can see in the distance the split rock on top of a 300-foot tall hill. The split rock is 50 feet in height. It's a very prominent rock. Now in Numbers 20:11, and Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. So God provided for them. He gave them provision. And
water for 1 million people.
Yes.
And probably several million animals.
Probably 3 million people, plus their livestock. So some people have been able to make it over there. The country is closed. You cannot get a tourist visa. So to get into the country is very difficult. And then getting out to the site, you have to have permits usually just to get to that area. But here you can see the split rock where you can see a large amount of water erosion. A large amount of water erosion coming down from the rock. In the foreground here, you can see channels being cut into the rock. The water has eroded the rock to a smooth surface here.
And this is the rock that in modern Western times that Jim and Penny Caldwell, the Bedouin have always known this is here, but this is where Jim and Penny Caldwell discovered this one.
Yes. After Ron discovered the mountain, Jim and Penny went out there and they also found this rock. So very, very large rock. The split in the rock is so large you can actually walk through it. And a large amount of water erosion inside the rock itself. Here you can see how it stands out prominently above the peak there. And so here you can see the split in the rock where a person could walk through it. When God split it, it sure split, and then the water erosion coming up out of there, spewing up, it created more space probably in the rock, eroding it away. And you can see water erosion coming down from the rock.
Yeah, and even if you saw this and you were a skeptic and said, well, that rock has always been split, it's just it's a natural outcropping, and that erosion is wind erosion, well, you're not going to have wind erosion flowing down in a pattern similar to what water would create.
Yes, this is definitely water erosion coming down. Again, this is a desert area, very little rainfall at all out here, and yet all this water erosion you can see on the rocks coming down from this giant split rock. So God did provide water for them lovingly, even though they were impatient and rebellious, kind of like us, I guess.
Aren't we all? Yes.
Yeah. So in our next slide, you can see Ross Patterson. He's standing next to the split there in the rock.
Now, those who are not familiar with Ross Patterson, who is he in relation to all of this?
He's a friend of mine in New Zealand who also promotes Ron Wyatt's work.
Oh, very good.
Presentations, and he was able to make it out there. And so our next slide, we can see the altar Jehovah Nissi in the foreground. And in the background, we can see the split rock once again standing up. Very prominent rock in the background. And
so this is an altar of some kind.
This mentioned in the Bible, yes, this altar. So again, this is matching the biblical account once again. And there's also some circular rock formations. I don't know if they held the bottoms of the tents down or something, because you see some round rock formations where the children of Israel were encamped in this area.
That's similar to what we find in North America with the Cherokee Indians and such across the country, that in certain areas where they would camp, there's these circles where their tents were.
Okay, yeah.
At different times of the year, yeah.
Sure, yeah. So over on the other side of the mountain is the front of Mount Sinai, and you can see in the distance the blackened peak of the mountain. Once again, the Bible says that the mountain was a smoke. It was on fire. And so the mountaintop here is blackened. When you walk up to the top of the mountain, several people have, you turn the stone over, the top of it's black, the bottom of it is brown.
Really?
So there's evidence that it was burned on top, and the natural color is on the bottom, and it's brown.
Now that answers a question I was going to ask, and you've already answered it, because I have heard a secondary theory that this is just a different type of rock. It's a black rock that happens to have this line right at a certain point near the peak.
Yeah, but that's not the case. Yeah, this is a burned mountaintop, because underneath it, it is brown material. So it's actually a day hike to make it to the top of the mountain and to make it back down. Strenuous walk. But people have been up there and they've seen the blackened, burned.
And that is the tallest mountain in the area.
It is. The upper 2/3 of Saudi Arabia is the tallest of mountains, and that's another clue that ancient historians have said, that it was the tallest of mountains in Midian, and that's what it is.
Here it is from Josephus. We were just looking at that now. Josephus said that Mount Sinai was the highest of mountains in the city of Midian, which is just outside of Al-Bad.
Yes, Al-Bad is 15 miles to the south.
Okay.
And Al-Bad is where Jethro is from. On some maps, you'll see the name Jethro next to Al-Bad. And the caves of Moses are there also at Al-Bad.
And also Philo said that Mount Sinai was located east of the Sinai Peninsula and south of Palestine, which puts it again in this vicinity.
Again, we're in the correct location. So you have all these ancient historians identifying the site, and you have the Bible saying Mount Sinai in Arabia, Galatians 4. So it's pretty incredible. It's been lost for so many millennia, and yet here it is coming out near the end of time for a demonstration of truth for mankind. So Exodus 19, and Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. My friend Aaron Sin was out there around 2003 with Tim Mahoney, and again you can see the blackened peak in the background, and at the base of the mountain, we'll see a little bit later, is the remains of an altar. Once again, fitting the biblical account. You can see a guardhouse on the right edge of this photo. They put a fence around the front of the mountain, and a guardhouse and a sign telling people to stay away. This is an archaeological area. So the Saudi authorities are recognizing this as an archaeological site.
Well, having put that much effort into it, they know.
Yes.
They know darn well what this is.
Sure. And then another photo here from a distance further back from the mountain. You can see, again, the encampment area, and the left side of the photo in the distance, that's an area where Elijah's cave is. And here in the very center of the photo is Elijah's cave. It's in a shadow, but it's in the, kind of the very center of the photo here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see it there.
Yeah. And he, Elijah, arose, he did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God, and he came thither unto a cave and lodged there. 1 Kings 19.
Now, how many people would catch on to that this is the same? Because we hear of Elijah's cave, but normally you wouldn't tie the two together. You wouldn't stop at Mount Horeb. Oh, yes, that's right. This is the same place. It's funny that it's just all in the same area.
Everything matches here, the biblical account. And this is taken from inside the cave, and we're looking out into the valley below. This is quite a photograph here.
Wow. Now, that is, there in the photo you can see that's the Saudi government's buildings, is it not?
Well, actually those are Bedouin buildings in the far distance. But just in front of that, toward the mountain a little bit, is the fencing they put up, the Saudi authorities, to keep people out.
And there's all kinds of things down there. There's even a modified corral of types.
There is, remains of an altar, remains of pillars at the base of the mountain. Here's another photo of the cave. It's not real deep, but nevertheless it is something to provide shelter from the rain and so forth. Now, Google Earth, you can look about 20 miles southwest of here, and you can see Elim. Elim was where there were 12 wells and 70 palm trees, we're told. And if you go there today, there's still 12 wells at this site.
So this is no doubt Elim.
Yes. So this is, again, confirmation we're in the right area.
And it's on the right trail. It's on the way, is it not?
Yes, it is. Right. And so we're back at Mount Sinai again, and Ross Patterson is pointing to a spot in the distance. This is where the golden calf incident took place. We're going to see that shortly. But this will give you an idea of how Moses is coming down the mountain, and he could have seen the dancing and the apostasy taking place. And of course, his anger became hot, righteous indignation against the apostasy of the people. In Exodus 32, and it came to pass as soon as he came nigh into the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tables out of his hands and brake them beneath the mount. So that's what he saw. And here we can see, this is an aerial view of the large rocks where the golden calf was placed on top of this. The Saudi authorities, they have placed a fence around this once again, and there's a sign saying this is an archaeological area, stay out.
And the clue is that there are paintings on the side that are not indicative of that area, are they?
That's right. You've been there, I guess.
I've seen photographs.
Okay. Yeah. So here we are. This is a closer shot of it. And on the sides of this, as you say, there are inscriptions of the Apis bull and so forth on the side of this from Egypt. So they came from Egypt. They're accustomed to this, Egyptian bull designs and so forth. And here Ross is next to one of them.
And that is not native to that area.
Right,
That's the key.
The Saudi locals, do not draw this type of Egyptian drawing on the rocks, in their area. So this is something brought over from Egypt, these designs and so forth. So, and then Ross is next to some other carvings here, more bulls and calves, and you see a camel and so forth. So a lot more inscriptions here showing people were here, and again it's tied back to Egypt.
Now how long ago was this that you could get that close to this? Because you can't do that anymore.
Right, you can't get a tourist visa. You have to get some sort of special permission from the government. You can't just send in an application for a tourist visa. You have to get a special permit, and that's extremely difficult.
And you would have to hop the fence now too to get this kind of photograph.
Yes, to get inside some of these areas, you can go around the fence. Some of them have, but of course they're not damaging anything. They're keeping everything pristine. So, and here's some more drawings. Ross is next to. This is out in the encampment area.
Oh, so this is not at the altar itself. There are more of these.
These are a little bit away from the actual golden calf altar. These right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then this is Dr. Kim, who was out there, went out there 12 times. He worked for the Saudi prince, and he found numerous drawings out here also. He also found these artifacts, incredible amount of pottery and so forth in the encampment area.
And he was wasn't he a personal physician to the king? He was
to one of the princes, yes. Yes. And then he found, if you can see here, the arrow's pointing to a menorah. He found a inscription of a menorah where it was actually made there, Mount Sinai, the golden candlestick. So this is where it was made, and this is the oldest image ever of the menorah or golden candlestick.
And again,
he found it there.
Even if you were to argue that, what would a Hebrew inscription be doing in the middle of a Muslim Arab country?
Exactly, yeah. This is showing the Jewish roots of these drawings out there and of the people that were there. And then Ron Wyatt found this millstone in the encampment area. Once again, evidence of the people occupying, and this would have been used with manna, grinding up the manna. So this is, a manna stone, so to speak.
Wow,
Pretty
absolutely
incredible.
amazing. Well, you know what, we're going to have to cut it short, Kevin, but you know what, we're going to come back. We're going to come back because we have a lot more to talk about. We've covered several very interesting, fascinating topics so far. And we're going to come back next episode with the Ark of the Covenant. So we'll talk to you more about that. And in the meantime, thank you for watching. Please support this program. You are our only means of support. There are no corporate sponsors. You make it happen. So go online to aroodawakening.tv/give, and you can give there or give us a call at 888-766-3610. Until then, next week, we will see you. Shalom, and we'll be back with more of Kevin Fisher.
lives of Israeli victims hang critically in the balance following events of terror, violence, and war. But there's another painful problem: men, women, and children living in poverty. And you can be there for them. Visit us online at thelydiaproject.com. You'll find personal stories from the people who need you and the information you need to make a difference in their lives. When you give to the Lydia Project, you enable us to send help. Emotional and spiritual encouragement are especially needed during these critical days of recovery. Your support enables our ground team in the land of Israel to function as Yehovah intended, providing for the wounded soldiers, widows, orphans, and the poor. Help Israel. Give to the Lydia Project.
This program is made possible by generous gifts from partners and viewers like you in this area.
4,000 years ago, the Creator of the universe made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. All the land, from the Euphrates to the Nile, belongs to the sons of Israel. Shock waves will shake the earth as heaven reaches down to fulfill that promise.
The Dead Sea, the lowest point on planet Earth, once described as a well-watered plain like the garden of the Lord. Nearly 4,000 years ago, the crust of the earth split open, and out of